And now, it's BoomerLife, lifestyle discussion designed to make your life more engaging, meaningful, and complete. Celebrating the baby boomer generation, this is BoomerLife on CIL 650.
Don't you listen to what the man said.
Welcome to BoomerLife on CIL 650. I'm George Gordon. Today, we're talking about the latest innovations in hearing with NexGen Hearing. We'll learn critical facts from an expert about the inner workings of the ear, and you will be offered real solutions for hearing loss. Joining us in studio from NexGen Hearing is registered audiologist Dr. Ted Venema. Ted, tell us a little bit about NexGen Hearing and about yourself.
Well, NexGen Hearing, excuse me, got a frog in my throat. Started about several years ago on Vancouver Island. And then you also had Mainland Hearing, which began here on the mainland. And recently, this past year, they've been fused together. So I believe they've got about almost 40 offices located in British Columbia. Some on the island and some here on the lower mainland, as well as in the interior.
Yes, indeed. There's an office just down the street from us in Penticton.
All right.
So it has spread. You've done some good work. You've done a lot of research on the equipment, as we call it. Let's talk a little bit about what we've learned about hearing loss and how you're dealing with it. Let's talk about today's digital hearing aids and how they handle background noise.
Yeah, that's a real thing. I think you could even call the topic of today's talk background noise because that's the real bugaboo with a lot of people. They have trouble hearing in background noise. And hearing loss is invisible. You can't see it. So people believe what they see, and it's insidious. It creeps up. You start losing your ability to hear clearly. You can't hear high-pitched sounds. And then you say, oh, people are mumbling, because you can't hear that crisp clarity of speech, so to speak. And one of the big problems is listening in background noise. And hearing aids today have come a long ways in the way that they handle background noise. That's really something that should be touted from the rooftops, because a big complaint in hearing aids or of hearing aids was how they performed in background noise.
Well, we've seen many of the commercials on TV for the, usually around Christmas too, and they had a little thing that you can throw on and you can just basically jack up the volume from the TV so that you don't have to have it blaring and so on. But it is not that simple, and especially when you're dealing with background noise. A simple room full of people having a quiet conversation is like trying to listen through a pail of mud. So,
and the thing, I think the thing people need to dispel, the notion we need to quell, is the fact that hearing aids just make sounds louder. They don't. It's more sophisticated than that. They take a prescription, much like your glasses do for your eyes. You couldn't wear my glasses, I couldn't wear yours. And it's the same with hearing. They are programmed, hearing aids are to match the needs of your particular hearing loss. Like, for example, some people have good hearing in the bass, poor hearing in the treble pitches. So they can hear low pitches, but they can't hear high pitches. That's the most common. Other people, it's the other way around. And some other people have poor hearing across the whole frequency range, from low to mid to high pitches. So literally, the hearing aids are made to give you back the hearing at the particular pitches where you are missing it. And that's the thing that we call programming the hearing aid. They're all digital, and they're programmed by software on a computer. And they have all these different programs and channels on them. And in that way, we try to sculpt and shape the sound of the hearing aid to match the individual's needs.
Some fascinating stuff that we'll be getting into. Let's start with, and I learned this from singers and from being in broadcasting. Most of the microphones that we deal with, the headset microphones that we're using right now, have a shorter range pickup. If they were a full room pickup, you and I would be having feedback. Singers, you'll often see singers with their mouth right on the microphone because they don't want to pick up any of the crowd noise. And that's and this technology, the science, is used in hearing aids with the directional microphone. Yeah,
there's three ways in which hearing aids deal with background noise. One is with programming, and we'll describe that in just a bit. And the other one is with microphones, directional microphones. In other words, picking up sound in the direction in which you're facing. Okay? That's one technique that has been used. And a third technique that we'll cover more toward the end is called digital noise reduction. How do you suppress the noise? Let's face it, the hearing aids have to do two things. Hearing aids need to amplify to recover the hearing that you're not hearing. You know, the sounds that you're not hearing. That's the first thing. That's kind of like, duh. Well, yeah, obviously. But the second thing is hearing aids have to try and separate speech from background noise. And that's the challenge as well. Because if you're just amplifying, well, you're going to pick up everything. And so that's why the technology that we're going to be describing it's quite unique, it's quite sophisticated, and it's really quite marvelous. It not only amplifies, but it also works at making speech clear amongst the background noise that's also present.
That science actually, I think, has been used by broadcasters for decades and decades, and learning how to employ it in other fields, and especially for hearing, because old hearing aids, like the big clunkers that you used to see sitting on the top of your ear, were basically a matter of turning up the volume. And now people kept on turning them up when the sound was soft and turning them down when the sound was loud. And that's old technology. Today's hearing aids use something called compression. And in one sentence, it means they amplify the soft sounds automatically by a lot. And as the sound coming into the hearing aid gets louder, the hearing aid automatically backs off. Mm-hmm. So that adjustment is now largely done for you. So you're not sitting there turning up and down the volume with your finger. Right.
That's yesterday's technology.
Well, I can remember probably going back 30 years when maybe even more with the sound systems for a home, and you'd have different spaces and angles and so on. And so they employed digital technology to do just that, because if you had like Procol Harum, for example, playing them, and they've got the orchestra in the background, well, you don't want to lose them, but you could do that. You could separate the sounds and have them coming at your ear in a different way. So now you just figured out how to do that with the thing about the size of a pen. So this is the science is pretty wonderful. How is this new for hearing aid, like NexGen?
Programmable hearing aids have been around for over a decade or so. I mean, they've been around, and digital hearing aids have been around for at least 10 years as well. Actually, the first digital hearing aid came out in 1997. And so they've been around, but they keep on improving. They just, like hearing aid manufacturers, there's only about 7. Okay? And I'm telling you, they are the most competitive. They have these product managers that pound out new products every 6 months. So hearing aids are like improving constantly, just like your smartphones are doing, and iPads and iPods. Every year Apple comes out with its new release, that does this and more. It's the same with hearing aids. It really is remarkable. When you describe that they take a prescription, meaning that your hearing is measured and it's entered on what we call an audiogram, which lays out the sensitivity of your right ear and your left ear separately for bass, mid, and treble pitches. Those results are then fed into the computer. The computer software automatically programs the hearing aid. So it's tuned to, if you've got a treble hearing loss, then the hearing aid deliberately provides more treble. And listen to this. I'm going to turn my paper here like a horn.
Okay.
And now if I'm speaking like this, you can sort of hear the high pitches in my speech. Right. And it's, you're trying to do that for someone who's got treble hearing loss. And on the other hand, you're giving more bass boost for someone who's got bass hearing loss. You're tuning the hearing aid to match the particular needs. And that's why the public often thinks, hearing aids, they just make sounds louder. And it's way better than that.
It's sorting out, and I think when you go back to the crowd noise situation is the most obvious. But I would think for people who work in field of music, I would think even in the medical field, if you're listening to a chest, for goodness sakes, understanding that phlegmy noise inside a chest or not hearing it could be critical in a diagnosis.
And hearing impaired physicians and nurses also come equipped with amplified stethoscopes.
Right.
You know, there's a lot of things that are done today, excuse me, but hearing aids themselves, too, they can communicate by Bluetooth with various devices, with your television, with your cell phone, all hands-free and wireless, so that you could be sitting there in your living room and you may have the hearing loss. You're wearing today's tiny little digital hearing aids, which, by the way, are cosmetically almost invisible. And the television would be streaming, as they say, the sound to your hearing aids wirelessly, so that if I'm sitting in the same room and I don't have a hearing loss, the volume doesn't have to be turned up at all. It can be turned up to match me with normal hearing, and then you with the hearing loss are getting the sound wirelessly sent to your hearing aids, and it's being sculpted and shaped to match your particular hearing loss, and you're sitting there in hearing heaven. You're hearing the same show I am.
So if you're looking at reasons of why you would want to program your hearing aid, there's some critical factors, some safety factors. There's enjoyment of life factors that if you have, and you're reducing noise pollution.
Yes, because hearing aids can also have separate programs, in plural, put on them. In other words, I can store one kind of sound as memory number one, program number one. I can store another set of parameters like bass and treble amplification as a separate program for listening in noise. I can, if I'm a musician, I want more rounded sound. I want more of that bass surround sound type of quality. So I can store a program in the hearing aid meant specifically for listening to music. So it is remarkable what hearing aids today can do. With programming is one way to work with background noise, and we should talk about that in the next segment. And directional mics is another way, and digital noise reduction is yet another way.
Well, there are many new avenues to hear better, with better quality of life, better quality of a working environment. Physically, you don't see them like you used to do. And there's no batteries, I would assume.
Well, they have batteries.
Okay.
Oh, yes, they do have little pill batteries. Now, most of the batteries you buy at drugstores, but there's some that have rechargeables. And people like that, too, because when you're becoming elderly, you're losing some tactile fingertip feeling, and vision goes, and it becomes
like
difficult.
Trying to thread a needle when your hands are frozen.
So there's all kinds of things that hearing aid companies are doing today. I mean, the hearing aids have advanced hugely from those beige bananas that people wore behind their ears.
Much more to come. You're listening to BoomerLife on CIL 650. I'm George Gordon. Today, we're talking about the dramatic effects of hearing loss and the solutions that you will find with NexGen Hearing. We are talking to NexGen's Dr. Ted Venema. You can get more information, by the way, at nextgenhearing.com. This is BoomerLife on CIL 650.
Celebrating the baby boomer lifestyle. This is Boomer Life on CIL 650.